Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's topic is the right ventricle. In the previous video we have seen the right atrium. So we will continue with the right ventricle. Interior of right ventricle may be asked as essay for you, or it will be kept in the practical exam. Those who have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe now. Keep watching the video. Now we will move on to the topic right ventricle. Right ventricle, if you see, this is the right ventricle. It is open to show the interior. It is situated in front and to the left side of right atrium. So it is to the left side of right atrium. It forms 2/3 of the sternocostal surface. So this is the sternocostal surface. It forms 2/3, most of the inferior border, and 1/3 of the diaphragmatic surface of the heart also. So that is about the right ventricle introduction. If you see the cross section of the right ventricle, the interior of the right ventricle is semilunar, whereas the left ventricle will be circular, because the ventricular septum bulges more towards with the convexity towards the right ventricle. If you compare the musculature of the right and the left ventricle, so this is the left ventricle musculature and this is the musculature of right ventricle. Musculature of the right ventricle is thinner, 3 to 5 millimeter, than that of the left ventricle, 8 to 12 millimeter. And the proportion of the thickness between the right ventricle and left ventricles is 1:3. So that is about the introduction to the right ventricle. Now we will move on to the topic interior of right ventricle. The interior of right ventricle, if you see here, we will see only the right ventricle, consists of two parts. Inflow rough part, you should see the tricuspid valve, and from that part is the inflow rough part or inflow tract. Inflowing rough part, inflow tract, or the ventricle proper. And the outflowing smooth part you should see going towards the pulmonary trunk, that is the pulmonary valve and its cusp. So this is the moving towards the pulmonary valve, that is the outflow tract, outflowing smooth part, which is known as conus arteriosus or infundibulum. So that is known as conus arteriosus or infundibulum. The inflow tract, this is the inflow tract, receives blood from the right atrium through the right atrioventricular orifice. The outflow tract ejects blood from the ventricular apex into the pulmonary trunk through the pulmonary orifice. The conus arteriosus with its outflow orifice is situated above, in front and to the left side of the inflow tract. So if you see this, blood of the inflow tract during the ejection through the outflow tract makes roughly an obtuse angular bend. So you should imagine the blood flow from this orifice to this orifice. It is obtuse angular bend. Inflow tract is developed from the, always rough part will develop from the primitive chamber. So that is from the right part of the primitive ventricle, and the outflow tract is a part of the right half of the bulbous cordis. So if you see what is demarcation between the inflow tract and outflow tract, supraventricular crest. So that is the supraventricular crest intervenes between the inflow tract and the outflow tract. First we will see the features of the inflow tract. In the inflow tract, first we have to see the right AV orifice and the right tricuspid valve complex. First we will see the right AV orifice. This is the right AV orifice. It is somewhat oval or circular in outline, and it is oriented almost vertically, making an angle of 45 degrees with the sagittal plane. The circumference of the opening on an average varies between 10 to 12 centimeter. So we will see this side also. This is the orifice, right AV orifice. So that is circumference of the orifice varies between 10 to 12 centimeter. You are nicely seeing the cusps of the valve. So now we will see the tricuspid valve complex. So this is the tricuspid valve complex, guards the AV orifice. The valve complex includes AV orifice, tricuspid annulus, that is the attachment, leaflets or cusps of the tricuspid valve, CHORDAE tendinae which is attached to the cusp, and the papillary muscle. You are seeing the papillary muscle also. We will see one by one. First we will see the tricuspid annulus. Tricuspid annulus is a collagenous ring succeeding the orifice, whereas the base of the cusps are attached. The leaflets or cusps of the valve are 3 and are named as anterior, posterior and septal according to their attachments to the annulus. Anterior leaflet is attached to the, we will see the anterior leaflet. Anterior leaflet is attached to the upper margin of the annulus and extends medially across the membranous part of the ventricular septum to meet the septal leaflet. So that is the septal, anterior leaflet meets the septal leaflet at the anteroseptal commissure. The septal leaflet extends from the muscular part to the membranous part of the ventricular septum. The posterior leaflet is attached horizontally to the lower margin of the annulus. So there are the 3 leaflet, anterior, posterior and septal leaflets, this side of the cusp. Each leaflet, how it is formed? Formed by the reduplication of the endocardium containing lamina propria, lamina fibrosa. Now we will see the leaflet. Each leaflet, if you see the leaflet presents 3 margins. Presents from the free margin to the annulus 3 zones: rough, clear and basal. Rough zone, you can see that is thick and provides attachment to the CHORDAE tendinae on its ventricular surface. The clear zone is thin and devoid of attachment, caudal attachment. The basal zone is thick and it will give attachment to the basal CHORDAE tendinae if present. So you can understand the parts of the cusps: rough zone, clear zone and basal zone. Now we will see the CHORDAE tendinae. You are seeing now the CHORDAE tendinae in detail. Clearly, CHORDAE tendinae. What are CHORDAE tendinae? They are the endothelial covered collagenous threads and consists of 2 varieties, false and true. False CHORDAE extend irregularly connecting the valves and they are not of importance. The true CHORDAE connect the apical third of the papillary muscles. You are seeing the papillary muscles. So it is connecting the apical third of the papillary muscles to the free margins and ventricular surface of the tricuspid valve. So they help in the valve closure during systole. They prevent the turning of the leaflets towards the atrium. The CHORDAE are classified according to their attachments as commissural, cleft, free marginal, rough zone and deep and basal. Commissural and cleft CHORDAE are fans shaped and are attached to the indentations and margins of the leaflets. Free CHORDAE are attached to the margins of the valve by dividing into branches. The rough zone presents usually 3 strands. One is attached to the free margin, one to the junction of rough and clear zone, other to the rough zone between the former 2. The deep CHORDAE tendinae extend deep to the free margin, directly attached to the junction of rough and clear zones. Basal CHORDAE tendinae extend from the ventricular wall to the basal zone of the leaflet. So they are the divisions of the classification of the CHORDAE tendinae: commissural, cleft, free marginal, rough zone, deep and basal. Papillary muscles, there are 3 conical muscular projections, usually 2 in number, anterior and posterior. Base of the papillary muscle is anterior papillary muscle is attached to the sternocostal surface. So this is the anterior papillary muscle. Posterior papillary muscle is attached to the inferior wall of the right ventricle. So this apical third of the papillary muscle provides attachments to the chordae tendinae. Now we will see the smooth part. Our rough part we have completed. We have completed in detail about the tricuspid valve complex. We have seen about the tricuspid annulus, 3 cusps, and also about the chordae tendinae in detail, and also the papillary muscles. Now the wall of the inflow tract. Before going to the outflow tract, wall of the inflow tract we will see it is rough and presents trabeculae corneae, which consists of ridges, bridges and papillary muscles. So this is the trabeculae corneae, which consists of ridges, bridges and papillary muscles. Ridges means linear elevations, out of which we have seen supraventricular crest, which differentiates the inflow and outflow tract. That is the important one. The bridges means connect the ventricular walls by their ends but remain free in the middle. So in this specialized bridge we should know. So this is the specialized bridge. Yes, that is the specialized bridge called as septomarginal trabeculae, which extends from the right side of the ventricular septum to the anterior papillary muscle. So this septomarginal trabeculae conveys the right branch of atrioventricular bundle. Its action is preventing the over distension of the right ventricle. So it is called as moderator band. So this is the moderator band. So we have completed the details of the inflow tract, trabeculae corneae, chordae tendinae, papillary muscles, tricuspid valve complex. So now we will move on to the outflow tract. Yes, this is the outflow tract, smooth outflow tract called as conus arteriosus or infundibulum. It is conical, smooth wall, truncated and is directed upwards, backwards to the left, making an obtuse angle with the inflow tract. The apex of the infundibulum presents the pulmonary orifice, which is circular and guarded by 3 semilunar cusps, 2 in front and 1 behind. Each cusp is attached to the fibrous scallop of the orifice by the convex margin. Above each cusp, the pulmonary trunk presents a dilatation which is not open. So if you open and see, it will be presenting a dilatation known as pulmonary sinus. So that is about the outflow tract. Whereas the rough inflow part slows the inflow of the blood during diastole. Smooth walled conus arteriosus increases velocity during ejection phase of the systole. So now we have completed the interior of the right ventricle in this class. We will see the interior of the left ventricle in the next video. Those who have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe now. Keep watching the videos. In our channel, we have a playlist, Important Anatomy in 50 videos. You go through the 50 videos, you will be able to cover 60 to 70% of the anatomy questions for the university exam. Do subscribe now. Keep watching the videos. Press the like button and share button if you like. Thank you.